I could tune an instrument by ear.
What? You have perfect pitch?
I guess I didn't know that's what it was, Jessica, but when I was learning to play saxophone at the tender age of 10, I learned to tune my instrument by ear. That's how I was trained. So we didn't use the tuner. We were trained to tune our instruments by ear.
We found out a few things about Rebe that no one in the Salesforce ecosystem knows about her. Stay tuned to find out what we've learned. Welcome to 100 Days of Trailhead, where the tech community comes to learn Salesforce, learn tech, get inspired, and invest in ourselves. We are your trail guides, here to support you on your learning journey. We release videos weekly. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a video. In the description below, you can find links for everything we mention in this video, as well as books and resources we found useful. Visit our blog, 100daysoftrailhead.com, for other helpful Salesforce and tech content. Rebe De La Paz discusses her background, her family, and what shaped her as a professional and a leader. Rebe is a speaker, writer, techie, teacher, thinker. She is a CEO, founder, and solution architect for RDP Associates LLC, as well as a leader in the Salesforce community.
My question for you is, do you think that the need for the continuous education somewhat comes out of that feeling that I have to do so much more? Like, I'm thinking about you, and even working in this job, you were the only person there, right? And you're doing everything. You're doing all of the work.
It's funny you asked that question, because I actually had an incident when I was at a previous role, and I walked in the conference room and took over this meeting, and it was like all these people who were above me. Mm-hmm. Guy came up to me after and was like, "What's it feel like to be the smartest person in the room?" And I was like, "Man," I said, "Thank you for that. I don't feel like that." Right? If anything, I'm just expressing my opinions. And if anything, I'm always feeling second guessing myself, like they think I'm talking too much. But as far as we taught that we got to do twice as much. It's not so much we taught that we have to do twice as much. It's that when we get there, they tell us we have to do twice as much, because I was working in health insurance in Boston. I had, completed coursework pre-med at U of I. I went to Northeastern University. I didn't finish, but because I didn't finish, they were like, "Nope, you can't have this role. You can't do this work." I'm already doing the work for the guy, and he taking credit for it. But because he had a stupid piece of paper, that made the difference, right? But then it also begs the question, if I had the paper, would I have been given the same equity that he had? And that's the thing. Even when I finished school with all my credits, they still told me I was not enough. And so that is the other hurdle that I found myself jumping over. And if anything, I started going back to Sun Tzu, The Art of War. And it's like, okay, y'all want to play this strategy? I'm going to play with y'all. Y'all want to play hardball? I'm going to play the same hardball, but you're not going to see me coming, right? So when I walk in the room, I get my notes ready. They thinking, oh, she like the lower tier. But then by the end of that meeting, they know who running things in that room. Right? They know who's the subject matter expert, because I let my knowledge in the way that I explain and ask questions define where I'm sitting at the table and how my seat looks, right? Because that's the other thing. How many times have I sat at a table and they're like, "Oh yeah, they gave this person a seat because they represented." But really, I'm looking at some people like, you sitting in a kiddie seat because you didn't say nothing the entire meeting, right? You at the kid table and you got a booster seat so you can sit at this table, but you're not really saying anything, right?
Yeah. You've made a lot of really great points here about you both have, about hurdles that people of color, and specifically women especially, have to overcome. So I like to come from an allyship perspective and say, and really ask for me and for anybody else that really wants to step in and be the very best ally that they can be. Mm-hmm. what makes a good ally? And like, so for example, in other words, like an ally is someone who
I got a great analogy for that. So being another thing a lot of folks don't know is I was huge in basketball growing up. Like I used to go to the courts with all the dudes in my neighborhood, and I was the only girl there. But they had to let me play because I had a ball and they didn't. Right? So
I love that.
they was all bigger than me too. But I earned my street respect for that because they was like, she show up every day and she got her own rock. I'm like, you right. But when we think about allies, it's like, all right, it's two roles, right? And we think about it on the court. You got your point guard and you got your shooting guard, right? They really a team, right? Them two, they a pair. They work together and they give each other assists. That's what I need from an ally. Give me an assist. Don't just be taking all the shots, right? Pass me the ball so I can have the opportunity to take a shot. So when I'm sitting at the table and you notice they icing me out, they're not asking me questions, pass the ball to me and open it up so I can participate, right? Pass the ball to me in terms of a project. Pass the ball to me in terms of an opportunity that you see that even if I may not fit all the requirements, I may have the potential to surpass and meet the requirements. But you just got to give me the ball. And that's the thing. A lot of allies look at it as I'm gonna be an ally because I'm gonna sit in the audience and clap for you, right? And it's like, nah. Despite what you know, you have a ball in your hand. It's just a matter of you gonna pass it to me or not. You gonna let me take a shot? It's like, and that's it. It's simple, but a lot of times people ego trip, man. And that brings us, I had this discussion on another podcast about Black women versus everybody, and that includes ourselves. We get into these companies and we so busy competing with each other that we're not thinking about how can I support each other. You know, we're not thinking about the perceptions we have about those who did make sacrifices to get to the roles that they have and put ourselves in their shoes. Like I often have to do what I call a petty check. Am I being petty, right? About how this person is treating me or responding to me? Or is this reaction and the perceptions that I have based upon something else that may have driven them to reply and respond to me in a certain way? I call that my like, don't be petty because you feel like she got an attitude. Maybe something happened to her that day, right? That's my petty check.
Love that. I think that's great. I think that needs to be a hashtag petty check.
Petty check.
Something.
Seriously, because we, you know, and you know, for black people in general, you know, we talk about the black tax, where it's like, oh, you made it, so now you got to help everybody else. And it's like, sometimes you don't feel like it, to be honest, and you got to respect that. Like, sometimes you like, yo, I worked really hard to get to this one place. Can I have a moment to enjoy and embrace what I'm at? Because I may be going through an internal struggle because I moved too fast and got there. And I'm drowning inside and you don't see it.
And also there's exhaustion, like we were talking about earlier. Like, you know, I think, again, like I just go back to that moment where I saw you up on stage, you know, at Trailhead DX. I was so excited for you, and all the stuff is happening in the background, and I'm just now finding out what 3-4 years later.
Yep. And that's the thing, you know, I put myself in the shoes of other people of color that I see on podiums, on stages, on, you know, high roles, who have seats on boards. What did they go through to get there? Yeah. What type of family support did they family support them, right? How many hurdles did they go through? What struggles and imposter syndrome and situations made them believe that the way that they react and respond to other people who are in lower roles and they may not feel like they want to be their ally? What made them think like that, right? And that's a part of my like scientific background of asking the question, why are you acting like that, right? And that lends also to the whole code switching. I talked about that extensively with a lot of folks. You know, I've embraced the cadence and the holding on to the vowels that, you know, I came from, because It's my comfort zone. I feel my most powerful when I'm able to speak the way I speak at home, the way I speak to anybody else. That's my power, right? That's my strength, because that's me. That's my authenticity. That's my strength. When I'm portraying myself as something else and speaking in a different type of way, it don't feel right. And we all know it, because we feel it. You go home, you feel tired and drained. It's like your battery just drained. You like, man, I just went through these meetings and it's probably because you had to hold back a part of yourself in that meeting, and holding back used more energy than you realized you was using.
Absolutely. And I think that there's a portion of the audience that doesn't understand the concept of code switch. So can you define that?
So code switcher, you think about it in terms of language, right? English and Spanish, great case scenario. I'm speaking English, right? And then I go into a conference room where they speak in Spanish. I have to code switch. I got to switch languages, right? But if you refine that down to more granular in terms of dialect, cultural influences, cultural biases, right? I often check my children when they say stuff like, oh, she sound like a white girl. Well, why are you putting race on language? And they were like, what? And I'm like, what does it mean to speak like a white person? Are you saying that other people can't speak formal English if they so choose, right? Does their dialect have an impact on, how they're able to express themselves and communicate? And at the onset of it, it's so funny to me, because I had a woman tell me, oh, you should try not to use slang. And I was like, because I said ear hustling, how is that slang, right? And I was like, but you say awesome, and awesome wasn't a part of the dialect how many years ago, right? Internet was not a part of our language how many years ago? Google has only been around for 23 years, but now Google is a verb. Come on, right? So, English in itself is slang. If we go back to Chaucer and the Canterbury Tales, he wrote the Canterbury Tales in English, and everybody thought that was like so ghetto, right? Oh, he's speaking the plebeian, the peasant language. How dare he, right? Like, and that's the thing, English is an ever evolving language. It's always evolving. Our kids brought acronyms back. Half the time that I tell my children to speak in full sentences, I'm like, listen, let Siri and whoever spell that word out for you, because I don't know what your acronym mean. I didn't get this version. I'm still on V2.5. I'm not on V10. Like, I'm sorry. I don't. So that's when I say code shifting, that's another version. The kids will always speak a different language than the generation before, but that's a part of evolution.
I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I have heard more times in my life, you sound like a white woman. No, I sound like myself. I mean, I don't know how to be someone else. And interestingly, I've even had white people say, that's the way Jessica talks. And I'm like, listen, this is who I am. I could try to be somebody else. If that, but that's who I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to be somebody else. This is who I am,
She dropped a large vocabulary word and everything. And there was a white woman, I was in the presence and everything, and was like, oh yeah, Jessica talks that way.
And I'm like,
yeah.
Because I use big words. I'm sorry that you need a thesaurus. Okay. Do you know what a thesaurus is? I doubt the kids these days even know what that is, let alone a dictionary other than dictionary.com. Because for the most part, they go to Google and Wikipedia.
When I moved from the country to Atlanta, what I loved about Atlanta is that a Black girl could be anything.
Mm-hmm.
Anything. Like,
you went to Zootopia, you was a rabbit.
Right, exactly. I was like, a Black girl can be smart, or a Black girl can be funny, or all of these things. Like, it was like the wide range of what a human could be. And it wasn't just this one stereotype that they kept playing again and again to us in movies or on videos or you know what I'm saying? It's
I know it because I was raised the opposite, right? So I was raised I'm Black and I'm proud and I can do whatever I want. And I come from one of the baddest, historically known peoples in the world. Like that's how I was raised. That's what was important in me. So imagine getting pushed into schools where you're not like, it's not surrounded by all people that look like you. Where go to a school where I learned how to read on books that were printed in the publishing company of the same building, where they printed books that were people who looked like me, and the people who taught me to read wrote these books.
Yes.
Right? Like that's my mom made good decisions, and I was put in that phase. And then when she moved us to the suburbs, they trying to put me in circle holes and pegs that don't fit me. Right. And then they also try to put me in check boxes that I am other always. Right. I'm other in the way I think. I'm other in the background in which I come. I'm other in the cultural shifting. Like my mom, we lived in Inglewood. My mom was from Hyde Park. That was a whole nother shift in how you spoke, because I wasn't allowed to say ain't, yeah, no, I wasn't allowed to use conjunctions. You had to say cannot, not can't. Right? Like those were like, and that's because my grandmother was from the Philippines and her English, wasn't the best English. It was heavily accented. However, she wanted us to speak as the Americans we were, with the education capabilities that we receive, because public education, a lot of people knock it, but you have to think, compared to other countries, at least you have the opportunity to learn, you have the access. Right. And we take that for granted. As Americans, we take a lot for granted. I came to the point where I was on some, I read the literature, the classics, and, a lot of them was like, take it away, take it from them. I bet they'll want it then, right? You take it from them, they're going to want it, because we always want what we can't have. Yeah. Right. And it's funny, somebody else I know, she made this statement, and it's so true. And it's an Asian quote, but it's basically, all you need, you already have. And you do. It's just a matter of how you using it. So, but I'm just saying, like, man, it's an interesting thing when it comes to language. I almost went into a linguistic program just because I have such an affinity and an ear for it. So
how many languages do you speak?
I speak, well, I've taken French, I've taken Spanish. I actually started teaching myself Latin when I was in middle school, using encyclopedias and whatever resources my mom had for me, because I thought I was going to be a doctor. So I was like, I need to know Latin. And then when I lived in Boston, I heard this language I thought was Spanish, come to find out it was Portuguese. So I was like, well, they got Portuguese people out here. I thought they were still in Portugal, because I didn't know, like, in the Midwest, you get a lot of Polish people, and like you get Black, white, Mexican, right? But that's it, right? Because you're in the heartland of America. But when I went east, it was a cultural explosion. I was like, oh my goodness. So I do understand Haitian Creole, but that's because my husband and my in-laws are Haitian. And I was like, the first 2 weeks, I started putting things together. I was like, you're not going to talk in another language and think I'm not going to ear hustle and figure this out. So I'm talking about me or what? So I put that together real quick when they were saying that. I'm like, so you talking about me? Because I heard reference to me, right? Like, and then I took French because I was like, I'm going to make sure I learn more of these verb conjugations here. And so I ended up having a competency in like French and Spanish. Spanish was from work. I worked at a grocery store when I was young, and the immigrant farmers would come through my line, and their kids would have to speak to me because the adults couldn't speak English. I took Spanish in high school, but I ended up becoming more competent because I would speak to the immigrant farmers in my line. And that was the greatest thing for them to get their respect back.
I love that. Compassion. That's compassion. I love that.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for other women of color in tech and those wishing to enter tech?
Find your tribe, right? Because when you find your tribe, those moments when you having a moment and you need to vent, they there for you. And that goes a long way to helping you survive the trials and tribulations you will go through. And just know that. Know going into tech, right, is an industry where you may walk alone into a conference room, into a meeting, into a company. You may walk alone. And so find your tribe within the industry, not necessarily your company. If you can find somebody in your company, find them. And that's your tribe. It don't necessarily have to be in your company or at your job. It could be somebody who's outside, because as long as they're in the industry, they're gonna get it. And so that's been my strongest thing. Like I found my tribe. And now, like, we talking about how we celebrating our birthday and stuff like that, right? Like, just like them, the people you chill with, right? Or you can, I didn't know I was gonna find them type of that sisterhood.
Yeah.
Right.
So we've talked a lot about how you've mentored others and, how it is so important to really share the journey of somebody of color. What would you tell the children of the future watching, like the little Black girls, the little girls and boys of color? What would you tell them? What if you could tell them one thing, what would it be?
You belong in tech. They don't know that. You belong in tech. That's actually something I'm working on. And I want to call it You Belong in Tech. I feel like if more of us went into the schools to say, hey, I didn't think I belonged, but I'm here and I belong and you belong too. That's all they need to see. Because right now they see I belong in music. I belong in basketball, football. No, you belong in tech. Mm-hmm. You do. It's everywhere. It's in your phone. You could be making apps. You could be making microphones. You could be doing agricultural tech. It's here.
Yes.
You belong in tech.
What is one thing that no one in the Salesforce ecosystem knows about you?
Yeah. Oh, well, let me go to the thing I filled out for y'all, because I wrote some stuff in there and I don't think anybody knows these things. Let me see. And I didn't mention it either. Let me see. I wrote out some stuff. Oh, well, I don't know. I told people that. I could tune an instrument by ear.
What? You have perfect pitch?
I guess I didn't know that's what it was, Jessica, but when I was learning to play saxophone at the tender age of 10, I learned to tune my instrument by ear. That's how I was trained. So we didn't use the tuner. We were trained to tune our instruments by ear. We were trained in the symphony orchestra to be able to call out first and second chair. So like even when my son was in band and he played the French horn, I can hear when he was playing despite everybody else. So I have a good ear for music. When I listen to music, I can hear the original tracks that a lot of these artists sample. And so I'll even call it out, be like, no, that's Bobby Womack, or that's, like that's the Isleys. Listen, this is that, El DeBarge played with a couple of his original tracks when he was with his family, and then he brought them out and made songs out of them. Like things like that. Like it's kind of weird. I didn't realize it was some sort of like not everybody has skill. I thought it was normal band student stuff. I didn't.
You're a music Yoda is pretty much.
I think I'm just a special child. Like I do a lot of weird things. My mom be saying, I was like, so this whole time you just thought I was like weird, like, cause like I didn't know, like my Kindle, I went through 180 books like last year, and that's just the books on Kindle. Like I read a lot, I listen to a lot of music, I have all sorts of interests, I play with anything and everything. Give me something to play with, I play with it. I make bread from scratch. Like I love cooking.
You make bread?
Yeah.
I need to be a taste tester.
Wait, hold on.
I volunteer for
it was done when I was on maternity leave with the last kid. I was so bored. Like I needed something to do. So I started making bread from scratch, and I learned how to like really get in there. So I do that, and soups and stocks from scratch. Like I'm like a foodie.
Okay, what's your favorite thing to make?
Oh, my favorite thing to make is one I specialize in. It's soup joumou. It's a Haitian squash soup. And so I basically found a recipe and worked it. It got to where I thought it was good. And I brought it to my in-laws and they're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm back in Haiti. I said, I won, I'm done.
I won.
So how fast can I get to Chicago?
Yes, I know, right?
That's
Like
all
they have
I'm saying.
flights. I mean,
Listen, when I do that recipe like from scratch, it takes me like 8 hours because I layer my flavors, right? I'm like,
but I could be in Chicago. Let's see. Hold on.
I don't know. I mean, drive
listen,
fly, we can get there pretty quickly.
I really do. It's sad because I love cooking. Like my mama put joy of cooking on the table when we was growing up. So I used to have to cook before I went to basketball practice. So I would cook dinner. I mean, I was in middle school, high school, and I was cooking dinner every night.
That's awesome. I mean, really, seriously, that's a great skill to have. In the middle of the pandemic, my mom and I had a conversation and everything, and we're like, oh my gosh, what would we do if we didn't actually know how to cook? We would be so bored.
Listen, my daughter was bragging to her friend. She was like, yeah, I cook rice. Her friend was like, you cook rice? Like real rice? And she was like, yes, in the rice cooker and on the stove.
Versus steak rice?
Yeah, she had to show her the big thing of rice that we have. She was like, y'all eat rice that much? And it's like, yeah, my daddy's Haitian, my mom's half Filipino. We eat rice all the time.
This one can cook too. I mean, we like the concept of not being able to cook.
Rachel, they got YouTube now. Everybody doing, I watch them cooking videos just because it's just it's addictive.
Oh, I know, but some of their ideas of cooking ain't cooking.
Well, I'm from the school of frugal gourmet and like, the what's her name? The French cook. So I do a lot of them. I grew up on it.
Oh, yeah, that's so cool.
Okay. Well, I know that your daughter's like,
she want more time on her Switch, on her Nintendo. These kids and the digital devices.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
And with that, we're at the end. What did you learn about Rebe that you didn't know? Comment below. We would also love to hear what video topics you want us to cover in future videos in the comments. If you've made it up to this point, we want to take an opportunity to say thank you. Since you've stayed with us, here's a bonus tip. There is so much that makes up one person. Don't make assumptions about others. Rather, listen to their story and learn about their journey. You never know what you might learn along the way. Thank you for spending time with us. Please like and subscribe to our channel because we share weekly content to support your tech and Salesforce learning journey. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you don't miss a new video. We also handpick these videos which we recommend you watch next. Connect with us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and on 100daysoftrailhead.com, all of which are listed below. Thank you for learning with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.